U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi said today the Justice Department has filed a lawsuit against Maine after the state refused to ban men who identify as women from participating in women's sports. Joining us now to discuss is Jonathan Butcher, a senior research fellow in education policy at the Heritage Foundation, and Jeremy Rosenthal, trial attorney and founding partner of Rosenthal, Calabas and Therian. Good to have you both with us. Just to start off, I'll start with you, Jeremy. How strong is the Justice Department's case, and what do you expect to come of it?
It's an interesting theory. Title IX does not allow the federal government to, and in particular schools, to discriminate on the basis of sex. And traditionally, that has meant traditional gender discrimination. It's meant also sort of sexual harassment. If I can pick out a theory here that I think the Justice Department is getting at, what they're saying is that athletes who are female athletes are being discriminated against because they are being required to compete against athletes who they refer to as biological boys, what I think most folks would call transgender people. Their argument sort of assumes there's really no such thing as transgender, that it's sort of boys who just volunteer to go play in girls' sports and that the state of Maine is okay with it. I think it's a little more nuanced than that. But this is politics for the administration. Transgender issues have been sort of low-hanging fruit for them, sort of chum that they know that they're a lot of the followers like of the administration. And a lot of these nuances will probably be lost on the public.
And I do want to get into more of the politics side of this a little later on, but Jonathan, you've researched and testified on education policy around the U.S., including testimony before the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. How do you expect this case to go, and how strong do you think the case is?
Well, this is not an issue of politics. This is an issue of safety and protecting civil rights. Maine is violating the civil rights of women and girls by allowing boys to participate in athletics. They are denying women an equal opportunity, which is a violation of the Civil Rights Act and the Education Amendments of 1972. We are born male or female, and even the slight discrepancies that occur are very rare. But even among those, you are still born with the ability to produce either sperm or eggs. So this is not an issue of somewhere being in between, right? If we are going to give equal opportunity to women, they should not be required to compete against boys.
Now, I want to turn back to you, Jeremy. The lawsuit comes days after the administration tried to cut off Maine's federal funding for public schools and its school lunch program over this transgender issue. Maine's Democratic Governor, Janet Mills, called this executive overreach. Your reaction to start with?
Well, what she's saying is that there might be 2 or 3 athletes in particular that fit in this category, and over this, we're going to cut off thousands of school lunches. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And there are, again, to kind of talk about sort of some of the nuances here. Maine is not alone when it comes to transgender athletes. Ohio, J.D. Vance's home state, has provisions for athletes that are in transition to compete. And medicine dictates, and most states require a certain level of treatment and hormone therapy and other types of objective requirements. It's not simple as this is a boy and this is a girl. That's the political side. And again, that's kind of sort of boogeyman politics. But getting back to the legal issue here, are women discriminated against because they are being forced to compete against biological males? Where the administration may find some success here, and I don't know if this is true, is that the state of Maine does not require as stringent hormone requirements as, say, Ohio does, or Missouri. That's another state that allows trans athletes to compete. Or Utah, that's another state that allows athletes in transition. But the idea that there's just no such thing as transgender people, I don't think a jury is really going to go for that argument. Also, the governor of Maine is defending her own state constitution, which they have a bill in place that sort of establishes that this is the law in the state of Maine. if the Justice Department can do it through a lawsuit, that's fine. In some ways, it's almost relieving that they're going to the courts for this instead of executive actions and trying to threaten Maine to come to the table and try to make a deal, as is the case with this administration.
Okay, and just for a response, Jonathan, on that point of whether a jury is likely to find that there are no transgender people, if that is indeed going to be one of the questions in play here. But also interesting to note that in a way the Trump administration is charging Maine officials with overreach as well. Your response, Jonathan?
Well, sure. Well, surveys find that across America, Americans do not like the idea of boys having access to girls' private spaces. It's pretty clear in the polling that having boys participate in girls' sports is not a popular issue. So I think that you will find widespread support for the idea that we can protect women by making sure that boys don't have access to their bathrooms and locker rooms, especially among teenagers. So I think it is, as was said, important that the Trump administration is doing this through the courts, because I think that will give us a lasting precedent to say that there are two sexes, right? There is male and there is female. And any anomalies that we see, again, which are rare, still show that you are born either able to produce sperm or eggs. And so this is an effort of reinforcing the Civil Rights Act. And that's why it is essential that this be done through the courts and be made something that will last.
Yeah, let's look at this issue of potential precedent being set here. Jeremy, this lawsuit is likely the first in a series of similar legal challenges, as you've alluded to, with various other states having similar types of policies. So what could be the implications nationwide for this case?
Well, there's a couple things too. First off, these suits talk about athletics, and we were just talking about locker rooms. Those things are different. And I don't know necessarily what one has to do with another. I don't know that this lawsuit is trying to keep boys out of women's locker rooms. I think that's already the law. I'm pretty sure that it is. Also, the Attorney General mentioned safety. The athletes who won in these cases in Maine that are so of note are races. Somebody won a skiing race. That might relate to safety in some way that I don't know. But I would expect the administration to get a little more aggressive when it comes to their Title IX position. It's a nuanced one and it's a unique one, and one that I am sort of interested to see how the courts do it, because arguing that these women who have competed have to compete against transgender people who beat them and beat them convincingly, and picking on a state that probably has the least regulations when that comes, that's probably an interesting start, and we'll see what the courts say about that. It will be interesting to see if the Trump administration does indeed go after Ohio or Missouri or Utah, other states that allow trans athletes to do that. So I'll be very curious to see if the administration does indeed go after some states like that. And
Jonathan, honing in there on this contrast between athletics and locker rooms, those two issues adjacent, related, I'll have you comment on that. But also, if the judge rules that men and women's sports does not violate Title IX, or men who identify as women, could that impact cultural norms?
Well, it could be significant because these policies travel together. Oftentimes, the policies allow for boys to participate in girls' sports. They also have policies, such as in California and other states and even districts around the US, that allow teachers to hide information from parents, health information, when a child comes and says they're confused about their sex in a K-12 school. So schools are able to actually get in between parents and their children in crucial health decisions. Per the point about how these boys participating in girls' sports won handily, well, that's because they're boys. And just because there are some sports that don't involve physical contact doesn't mean that there aren't other examples. I would point to the volleyball games in which girls have been hit in the face by a spike from the other team from a boy who is playing, or the cases in which there were mixed martial arts competitions where a boy actually broke most of the bones in a girl's face. There are plenty of examples, including rugby as well as basketball. So this is most certainly an issue of safety as well as an issue of civil rights.
Now, Jeremy, you said earlier the administration is sort of trying to spotlight this issue to damage Democrats, and critics have said that. Trump has warned Maine's governor that his political career would suffer from his stance on Title IX. How much momentum do you think this issue has right now in public opinion, and which direction is it trending in your view?
Well, to this gentleman's point, in the state of Maine, this passed. This is the law in Maine. This is what the citizens of Maine want. The federal government doesn't like it. So I would say that Governor Mills is probably scoring points in the state of Maine for defending this. And Donald Trump is certainly scoring points with his constituency for doing this fight. That's what wedge politics is about. And we know what wedge cases are because we're trying to stop 2 or 3 athletes by not feeding 1,000 or 10,000 students in Maine. So obviously, I think that anybody would agree that a school meal program or a nutrition program would certainly take priority over something this insignificant. In Texas, we have transgender issues are very big. In some instances, our politicians don't want to talk about the power grid. They would rather talk about transgender issues because I think, to his point, this is sort of low-hanging fruit. Most people would agree that all people would agree that boys shouldn't be competing in girls' sports. But science tells us that's a lot different. And we know that because states all over this country have very comprehensive policies and laws regarding hormone therapy and things like this. So we know that this is a very, very complicated issue, but one that is obviously very highly emotionally charged. If a judge rules in favor of the state of Maine, it will be interesting to see where it goes. And if the judge rules in favor of the administration, it'll be interesting to see what leverage the administration has to sort of get other states in line with its view. But to your original point, I think this is good politics for Governor Mills. I think that this is probably, she owes the administration a thank you. And I'm sure the administration, they know what they're doing too when it comes to motivating their supporters, that everybody wins in something like this when you're going after somebody in their home state.
All right, and Jonathan, with the last word, you're in education, immersed in that, and where this whole debate is taking place right now. You've said earlier that you believe the trend is going in the other direction. So just to finish off with, we've got about a minute left, if you can take it home.
Sure. Well, to say that this is not a significant issue is an insult to the girls who spent their high school careers training to stand on the podium and then to lose to a boy. So it is certainly not fair to those students who have worked very hard to be successful in their sport and then to find themselves losing to a boy that they never thought they'd have to compete against. So this is a matter of protecting those young women and giving them equal access.
All right. Jeremy Rosenthal, Jonathan Butcher, great to speak with you both. Thank you so much for putting your minds to this very important topic at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.